All right. It appears we are officially live. Hello, everybody. Joshua Hatton here with ImpEx Beverages. Here to present the final of our YouTube and Facebook live stream, our sort of distillery deep dive. So I want to thank you for joining us. If hopefully you saw some of the advertisements for it, we're sort of treating this as a Christmas past, present, and future. So we'll discuss some of the brands that have been with ImpEx since our early days, really. Some of the distilleries that have joined us in 2022, maybe late 2021, but really 2022. And then we'll give you a preview of some brands to come in 2023. So before I bring on our distillery guests, I wanted to bring on my partners in crime, criminal number one, Mr. Sam Filmus. How are you?
Hi, Joshua. How are you? I'd like
I'm
to be
okay.
number one, the criminal number one. Add some juice to it. I love
Right?
it. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel you got a little street cred going on there.
Call me like that because that's a very, very best match of who I am.
And criminal number two, the smooth criminal, Mr. Chris
You know
Uhde.
that's right, man. What's going on?
How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Ready to bust out my dance moves.
Is that why you put your jacket? I saw you put a jacket on. I thought, is that so you can get your backspin going, do your old breakdance days?
I have to admit it, Joshua. California's made me soft. If it goes beneath whatever degree it is here, I just start to freeze. Like anything in the low 60s has just become unacceptable. And I say this while one of our coworkers is in a blizzard right now. So I feel guilty, but I still have my jacket on.
Yeah,
Including our UK suppliers. Sorry.
Yeah, it's I think it's maybe 28 degrees Fahrenheit where I am, so maybe -4 or so, or 3 Celsius for our UK friends, so, or rest of the world friends, I should say. So, and here I am in short sleeves. What are you gonna do? Sam, before we start bringing on our guests, I wanted to talk with you a little bit about Kilchoman, because this is, we talk about ImpEx in our early days, and Kilchoman is the brand that's been with us really the longest when we look at our portfolio now. So if you could quickly tell people a little bit about how Kilchoman came to be part of the portfolio, and here we are almost 13 years into having them in our house, which is amazing, absolutely amazing.
Yeah, thanks, Joshua. So yeah, Kilchoman joined us, or we started bringing Kilchoman to the US in 2010. So you're right, we're in the 13th year, being the only importer of this product in US and being a very proud importer. I kind of found myself with the thought that when people think ImpEx, they automatically think Kilchoman, or when they think Kilchoman US, they would think ImpEx, which is a great so-called marriage that we're very proud of. And it's just being part of the historical evolution of this brand makes all of us, very honored and a little bit humble, but at the same time, very, very proud.
Yeah.
As starting with something that no one knew. I kind of watched this distillery when they started, kind of evolution of it, but in no my dreams it was something that would become a reality as we ImpEx will be the importer of this brand. And when the dream became a reality, seeing non-age statement of the new guy in the block that had no recognition, no one, more people would associate it with some Japanese sauce or something, like pronounce it differently and etc. And all of a sudden, competing with Artbecks and Lafroigs of the world, Lagavulins of the world.
Yeah.
And here we are in a very good place with this brand. So
yeah, amazing. And that's one of the things that drew me to ImpEx early on, before I even started with you, was, oh, they've got Kilchoman. Wow. That's how I knew ImpEx was a player. You mentioned Japanese, and I can't think of the way Japanese whiskey looks from a modern perspective without thinking of you, Chris. And so I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about Oishi and Fukano, or like that. That was an uphill battle, for you in these brands and bringing this different style of whiskey to the U.S. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, that was fun. I mean, they're technically not Japanese whiskeys, right? They're legitimate whiskeys from Japan. They in Japan they're not
Okay.
qualified as whiskeys.
And I stand corrected.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't refer to them as Japanese whiskeys. We refer to them whiskeys from Japan because they're because they use the koji process. They don't qualify as whiskeys in Japan, but they qualify as whiskeys out here. And the whole education of that, bringing people into the fold of how beautiful it is, and now we see all these other brands coming into market that are also awesome. That kind of use the same processes has been fun. It started, I mean, that was golly days. I think it's 8 years now. We're going on 9th year of this project where Sam and I started working on in 2014, and it didn't even get realized until 2016 in our markets. And it's just been fun. It's been the evolution of that within our company, and the evolution of our company within that, and everything else we do is just it's kind of it's a fun journey. Like it's like merrily life is but a dream type thing.
Chris, was I right by calling this Japanese sauce, or should I call it sauce for Japan?
Japanese what
sauce?
Yeah, I thought you were saying Japanese soul, and I was like, yeah, man, it is 100% Japanese.
That's Japanese soul. It's you. I'm sorry, my pronunciation is not. It's clear.
Your pronunciation is always better than mine, especially after I'm a few drinks in. And yesterday I was in the office in Northern California, and Sam, you weren't in the room at the time. I was trying to talk to Helen about something. She's like, look, I can't understand you. Just walk away.
That sounds like Helen.
She
does it to me 3 times a day, every day. So it's okay.
Sam, is there a distillery that's joined us in the past few years? One that you maybe reach for around this time of year? Certain whiskey. I know sometimes you drink seasonally. I know I drink seasonally, and this is one of the reasons I got this Kilchoman here. This is the Travis Williams Kilchoman. I saw he's in the chat there.
Joshua, I'm not sure if I understand your question. So one more time.
Yeah, from our portfolio, is there a distillery, Kilchoman aside, is there a distillery that you may reach for more often during the colder seasons when you need a jacket like Mr. Chris?
I got you. So yeah, what distracted me was Travis, because I wanted to say that how much I enjoy his advent calendar, whatever he calls it, when he posts every day, he posts a different Kilchoman expression. So Travis, if you're with us, thank you for that. I've been enjoying. Right now, since in California, 9 months of the year is spring, but now it's official summer. I'm enjoying this, which is a Filey Bay Fino single cask.
There you go.
It's in my glass, but it could change every minute, so any minute. So
okay, that's fair. I brought my own Filey Bay. This is the one that we got from the distillery when we visited them in September. And I say, I can't stop touching this. I don't drink a lot of whiskey. This is me drinking a lot of it. So just so everybody's aware there.
I remember Joe from the distillery was presenting it to us, and the second you tasted, I knew Joshua Hatton is going to walk away with this bottle from the distillery. I knew that. Now here we are.
I could not resist it. All right, I've got one, maybe 2 more questions for you guys. And this is our trip in September reminded me of this. Ardnamurchan was a distillery that joined us in 2021. And I think that year they made on Whiskey Advocate's top 20, they were the number 12 spot, right? This is one of the beautiful things about our portfolio. We seem to pop up on the Whiskey Advocate list quite a bit, from Scotch whiskey to Indian whiskey to Japan whiskeys from Japan and so on. See that, Chris? Expert move. When we were in Scotland, you and Chris, you guys got to go to Ardnamurchan, and then I took the rest of the team up to Isle of Raasay. Now, I would argue you guys missed out on the Raasay trip, and you may argue, Joshua, you missed out on the Ardnamurchan trip. So can you talk a little bit about your time at Ardnamurchan and what you may have had there, what you may have learned?
Well, first of all, we were very jealous that you went to Isle of Raasay and we did not. And I thought the only revenge that we can kind of come with or against it is to go to Ardnamurchan, because I think both distilleries are wonderful to visit. And next time, trust me, if we go there, the whole team goes to Ardnamurchan, because it's very difficult to explain in words the feelings that we had and what kind of dynamite job the whole team is doing at this distillery. Speaking of favorite drink, at that time, my favorite was the Ardnamurchan cask strength small batch. I could not take my lips off the glass up until 5 a.m. But Chris, you want to add something? I know you had a good time with Alasdair and some other teammates.
Yeah, so I learned that Ardnamurchan sells very fine jackets. I happened to buy one of them while I was there. I was able to confirm that all of their warehouses have delicious whiskey in them, because I think we tried a cask out of each one of them. And they're just great people. Like the dinner, we had a dinner together, and it was a lot of fun hanging out with Alasdair and hanging out with Charlie, and it was just a great time. And it's actually, because it was their agents thing, it was neat to meet their partners in other countries as well, and those were all fun people. I think it was just a good time for all. We got to see some people we hadn't seen in a few years, and that's when I also learned that in the Western Highlands, the midgies are a true force to be reckoned with, like nothing I think I've ever seen before. Like it was amazing. We have the no-see-ums in the south, and they if there was a brawl between the two, the midgies would win for sure.
Are they the same? Are no-see-ums basically midgies in the U.S.?
I think so. I mean, I'm not a biologist or
midgiologist.
Yeah, they hurt the same, right? Like you get the little welts the same, and they sneak up on you the same. It's just the sheer number of them. And in the no-see-ums are like in the intercoastal waterway in the south part of Georgia. And so because I never lived there, I'd only see them occasionally when I'd go down to visit. But it always seemed like there was, when they hit you, but just not quite in the sheer number that the ones in Scotland and the Western Highlands showed up. I mean, they were beasts. It was great.
They were bugging a lot, but one of our, I think he's from Germany, he put some, perfume on himself or something there, and poor guy, that was like horrible, almost on the physical. He needed to sneak like into the bus, otherwise he would probably been like wounded or killed or something like that. I've never seen this picture before.
Say perfume, I instantly imagined he put some 80s Bowmore behind his ears.
Got get some for you, Joshua. I have it here.
Before we bring on our guests, I want to talk a little bit about something Elixir Distillers has helped me to appreciate, and that is rum. Right, most people think of Elixir Distillers as Port Escague or elements of Islay. Well, at least outside the U.S., elements of Islay. That's now coming into the States for this year. Single malts of Scotland, but it was meeting Ollie and then meeting Mitch Wilson and getting to taste the standard Blacktop Finest Caribbean and then these special editions. This is the Master Blenders Reserve 2021, and it really opened my eyes to a world that I'd never seen before. For me, malt whiskey was the be all end all. And I loved other things and I kind of liked rum, but I think Elixir kind of helped me to learn to love rum and not just like rum. I'm really proud to have them in our portfolio because, this comes with it and it's really special stuff. There's no doubt about it.
Hey Sam, the mini that I had on your desk yesterday, is that still handy?
Everything that you had I had on my desk was consumed by you. Everything is empty here now.
It is not empty at all. All right, never mind. I was just going to ask, why is it Sam's got a mini and Joshua's got a big bottle of that stuff? It is delicious, but I think it's time for me to take a flight to Connecticut and go rob a house. It looks like.
Come rob my house. That's because I spent good hard-earned money on that. That's why.
You know,
Man.
we had multiple discussions and maybe arguments and sometimes fight with Chris in terms of he's firm believer of rum consumer is rum consumer. There's no any overlap between rum drinker and, let's say, Scotch drinker, etc. And I have opposite opinion, but then he kind of is able to convince me that you gotta keep it separate. And then I sometimes, because I like arguing with him and like not agreeing with him, he would agree with me that yes, I think there's something to do with Ollie Chilton, who is behind a lot of Elixir brands and behind this Black Dot blend that is enjoyed by both. Maybe not 100%, but there's a good overlap where I'm pretty sure, Joshua, you know, if you tried something like Flor de Caña or Zacapa, which are great rums, you would not be as impressed as you're impressed with Black Dot, you know, Finest Caribbean
Maybe.
or Master Blender Reserve. So I think there's some parallel there, which we all appreciate.
Yeah, sure.
Ali's
All right.
palate is pretty on point, not gonna lie.
And his palate matches mine. There's no doubt about it.
Except for Bowmore, but yeah.
And then we have this. We got from Brian. Ollie is fantastic to listen to. I love Ollie's straightforward approach to a conversation. There's no doubt about it.
I remember us being at one of the hotels in Speyside after we spent the evening with Billy Walker and Ronan. And that was about, 2 a.m. maybe that time or something. And you gave him to taste something. And of course, he wouldn't show me what he tastes. And by that time, probably that was his 25th drink. And he goes, And there was the answer or your impression that I never forget. He goes, you says, thank you, Ali, for discrediting my whiskey or something, like putting down my whiskey.
I said that?
Yeah.
Oh, I may have used the cuss word if it were 2 a.m.
Drink 24, so you might not remember that. But yeah.
I don't.
Thank you for putting down my whiskey or something. It was pretty funny.
If you guys don't mind, I'd like to bring in some of our guests, some of our Christmas present guests. And actually, we're going to have a sneak preview of our Christmas future as well. I'll be bringing him in shortly. But why don't we... Oh, you know what? I'll just bring them all in. Here we go. Let me see. You guys asked for some Davids. I got some Davids for you. David Thomson from Spirit of Yorkshire and David Ferguson from Lochlea Distillery. Hello, gents.
Hello. Good evening.
Hi, guys.
Hello,
Hey,
David.
happy to have you both here. And then joining us from Campbelltown this evening is Mr. Alasdair Day. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, and great to be here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, lovely to have you. So, for those of you that don't know, I see most of us have put who we were with in our names. For those of you that haven't, that's okay. As a reminder, David Ferguson is with Lochlea Distillery, and Alasdair Day is with. Actually, you ready for this? Look at this. Boom. There you go. Now it's official. Thank you guys so much for joining us. For us here, 2022 has been right. It's been sort of a resetting. It's getting back to life as normal as possible, and getting out in front of people. And for the first half of the year, we had technology like this to rely on, and Zooms, and then later in the year we were actually able to travel. But I think the fact of the matter is in previous years, bringing on new brands, we would have been able to do a big rollout and introduce you to a bunch of markets. 2022 simply wasn't as simple as that. So what I'd love for you guys to do is maybe just talk about your brands and distillery in general as sort of a get to know you moment. And I'm going to go alphabetically here by first name, which means David and David are going to have to duke it out at some point. But Alasdair, I wonder if you could talk a bit about Raasay, Isle of Raasay, and what you guys are doing there and what's coming to the US.
Yeah, so we started distilling on Raasay in 2017. We released our very first single malt in November 2020, our inaugural release. So 2022 has been our kind of second full year of having single malt. So obviously we're absolutely delighted that that's now in the States with ImpEx. I mean, that's a huge thing for us. So our core single malt is made up of, we talk about the 6 cask recipe. Yeah, there we go. So we talk about the 6 casks. You maybe see that on there. So we do.
Let me see if I can spotlight you. I may be able to spotlight you. Let's try solo layout. There we go.
There we go. So that's our 6 cask recipe. So basically we do 6 months of unpeated spirit, 6 months of peated. The peated barley comes in at about 50 parts per million. And then we mature both of those separately in 3 different wood types. So we have X rye casks, Chinkapin oak, and X Bordeaux red wine. So that's where we get this kind of 6 cask recipe from. And then after, it's all matured separately. After 3 years, we vat that together. So we do vattings of kind of 85, 90 casks at a time.
Okay.
And that gives us our single malt. And then what we're also able to do from that is break it down into the single cask bottlings as well. So we would do basically deconstruct the single malt itself. So you can have the X rye, the Chinkapin, and the X Bordeaux, and both peated and unpeated.
Is there a reason? I know I remember being told the reason when I was at the distillery, but to remind me and to let our listeners know, can you talk about the reasons why you're using rye casks rather than bourbon, and why the aim for new charred oak, which is almost unheard of when it comes to Scotch whiskey distilleries?
Yeah. So we had always planned to release a Scotch whiskey at 3 years old. And obviously, if you're going to do that, you have to approach it in a certain way. You have to have active casks, and you have to have complexity, depth, and balance. That's a difficult thing to get at 3 years old. So the rye casks, for me, anyway, bring that kind of black pepper, that spice. So that's why we use rye over bourbon. When you first put our Isle of Raasay spirit into those casks, after 3 months, it's all black pepper. It's just full on black pepper.
Wow.
And then in time, that slowly comes down. The rye influence is slightly less, and then you get into the Quercus alba. So after 3 years, you're getting a bit more of that kind of butterscotch and vanilla that you would typically associate with Quercus alba. So for me, the rye cask just add an extra dimension. You just get that little bit more spice, a bit more black pepper. And then the Chinkapin oak, so the fresh casks. So we ask for it to be seasoned for 3 years, so air dried for 36 months. The reason behind that is that starts to break the oak down. What we're trying to do is the lignin in the oak eventually breaks down into volatile phenols. And that's part of what we're trying to do. So the air drying sort of starts that process. And then, we use Chinkapin oak, which is Quercus muhlenbergi rather than Quercus alba. So it's still North American oak.
Yeah.
Grows in all the same areas as North America as Quercus alba. And for a long time, they were never separated or distinguished between Quercus muhlenbergi and Quercus alba. And it was really to do with the wine, kind of, you think about American wines and you think about over oak Chardonnays, and that was like Quercus alba giving too much, Not at the time. It was a big thing at the time, but eventually people thought it's maybe just a bit too oak forward.
Yeah.
And Quercus Muhlenberg is much softer, a bit more mellow, more kind of dark fruit flavors. So the wine guys kind of started to distinguish between that. So for us, obviously, if we used fresh Quercus albicas, it might give too much too early on. But with Quercus Muhlenberg, it just gives us enough. Just gives us that kind of more mellow, dark fruits. So with Raasay single malt, we want it to be lightly peated with dark fruits. And then what we do is we ask for a high toast and then a high char. So the toast obviously caramelizes the natural sugars in the oak,
Sure.
but also it does the same thing. It starts to break those lignans down into volatile phenols as well, slightly earlier on. And then the charring, a high char, obviously more charcoal. If you're gonna bottle at a younger age, that just helps. That extra charcoal, that extra charring, just helps to remove some of the impurities from the spirit as well. So that's why those two in particular. And then the ex-Bordeaux red wine, obviously it's French oak, and the French oak's made up of Quercus Betuia and Quercus Roba. So we've got 4 different oak species in our casks. And then the French oak is much more savoury spice. So it's kind of more kind of cinnamon and cloves and those sort of things. And then obviously the ex-Bordeaux wine, that brings in those dark fruit flavours that we're looking for as well.
Muhlenbergy sounds like it could be a Scotch whiskey distillery. The
Well, there you
Muhlenbergy
go.
Distillery, right?
Dr. Muhlenbergy. It's all good.
Oh, that's great, and I love. I'll highlight this again. What Callum had said, just about the view.
Yeah.
You know, being on the island and then just doing a 180 from the distillery to look back at Skye.
Yeah.
And then you just look around, and you're basically on heaven on earth where you are up there.
Well,
Really
thank you very much. And recently, the last few weeks with a bit of snow on Glameg as well, just kind of finishes that off.
Yeah.
Hence the hashtag best distillery view. So.
Oh, is that the hashtag you use? Best distillery view?
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to have discussions with any other distillery on island. So.
Well, cool. I'm gonna. We may have some more questions coming up shortly, but rather than have David and David duke it out, I think I might invite David Ferguson on, and then I'll bring on our special guest, our surprise guest, shortly thereafter. But Chris, was there something you wanted to say? It looked like you unmuted for a second there.
I was just curious, in the summertime, how long are the days up on Raasay?
Well, yeah. I mean, right at the minute, they're really short, obviously, because today's like the shortest day. But in the summer, it's great. You know, it can be light till 11 o'clock at night, and it's just maybe only just a few hours of darkness. So summer's great on Raasay.
Amazing. Mr. Ferguson. So in September we got to visit the distillery. We got to visit the barley fields, which was just stunning, and spending time with Neil was his name, correct?
Yeah, Neil was our owner.
Yeah, really just a special time there. Can you tell people a little bit about your distillery, its location, and how you guys do the magic that you do?
Yeah, of course. I'm first of all, I'm glad that you didn't make the other David and I fight out, because I had no chance there. Yeah, we're Lochlea been producing since 2018, and we're independent, family owned. So everything, basically, we've got that autonomy. I know it's not unusual in this call, but in terms of the industry, that is something that kind of sets us apart a little bit, gives us a bit more flexibility. So yeah, we do everything on site. That's as much as we physically can right now. And the barley that you mentioned, I believe it's us and Daft Mill and Scotch that are the only two that grow over 100% around the farm. So that's a big thing for us, that traceability, and being able to control the quality and everything right from the land through into your distilling, and then maturing everything on site. That is a really big thing. But yeah, the team. So you guys, I think you met most of the team when you were over in September. Very few people actually meet Neil because he's a busy man. He's got other businesses on the go. So that was great to get him to actually yourself, Sam, Chris, the rest of the ImpEx team. He was he loves Lochlea and it's a kind of passion of his, but he doesn't. We get the chance or the time, doesn't physically have the time to get involved in a lot of stuff with us. So that was great for him and for his wife Jen. So yeah, we've just released our first whiskey this. Jesus, I mean, it feels like a long time ago, but January of this year was our first release, and since then, it's just accelerated and gone much faster than anyone thought it would, which is great. So. In terms, I mean, for anyone that hasn't heard of the brand before, where have you been? No, I kind of we're just getting started, but the brand we're not I guess we're not trying to create a kind of typical lowland light delicate style of whiskey. Our new make's very big, juicy fruit, but also has this what I would describe as a biscuity. I need to think of a better term than that, but this kind of cereal note underneath, and that traces right through the range. So whether that fruit becomes, summer berries in the harvest edition because of the port casks, or dark, rich, spicy into fallow when you've got the heavy sherry influence, the fruit's always there across Lochlea, and then that kind of. Our production director John Campbell, who joined us from Lefroy, he's got had a big part to play in that. I guess what we would call the DNA of Lochlea. So, what do we want people to just notice and recognise, no matter what type of cask it's been in, how long? There has to be this kind of distillery character there that makes us stand out. So yeah, that cereal note's always there, and is a really nice link back to the fact that we do grow all of our own barley as well. It's a big thing for the company.
You had said something before, and I know what you meant when you said it, but I've got a question. You'd said, we had our first release in January this year, and then things took off, and it's all moving really fast. Obviously, you're talking about Lochlea and your brand and the bottlings you're putting out, but I wonder what is whiskey looking like for you? Is the maturation running at the speed that you think it is? Like I think of John Campbell, and he's looking after your whiskeys now. His experience had been with Lefroy. Is he seeing whiskeys moving faster or slower than his previous experience? Like how are you finding it?
Great question. I've never been asked that, Joshua. That's a cracker. So I don't want to speak for him, but I think when John joined us, he's been with us just over a year now. I think he was maybe surprised at how little he had to tweak, because everything was just set up well there. We had a lot of experience even prior to John joining us. So, I think in terms of the speed of maturation, that is a really interesting one. I've spoken to, Alex, Connell, Graham, the guys at Ardnamurchan, they've told me before about they noticed a massive shift between 5 into 6 years and that kind of time period. So for us, I can't wait to see that. We're now, the oldest spirit we have is 4.5 years, so we're still a little bit behind in that curve, but we're constantly, John and the production team are constantly monitoring what's happening. We do have a longer term release plan that has age statement whiskies in there, so we know what we think we will release, but that may change depending on what John sees in the warehouses. I think also, John's got some really interesting stories about his favourite age of Lefroy's, and it's not what you would expect. It was not what I expected from a guy that's been in the industry for 30 years. So yeah, we'll keep a really close eye on that. But yeah, good. It's a good question.
Well, part of what made me think of it was A, your comment, but B, I was at a shop just yesterday in Massachusetts, and we were tasting your first release, which was a combination of bourbon and PX casks. And I remember, before you came on to the ImpEx portfolio, we had some advanced samples of your whiskey as it was maturing, and one of them was a 2-year-old PX cask. And I remember tasting it, saying, I see where this is going. The spirit is phenomenal. The wood and the spirit weren't meeting yet, right? They weren't intertwined, or I'm running out of words. It's late where I am, not as late where you are. But anyway, my point is, we tasted the first release yesterday together, and that's a 3.5-ish-year-old whiskey, somewhere around there. I imagine some of the PX casks that you used for that may have been the samples that I tasted at 2 years. And it was wild to see how complete that whiskey was at 3.5 years of age. That the wood and the spirit had finally come together in a really pretty way.
Yeah, definitely. One of the big things that John always talks about, especially when we're sampling casks or starting to put together or starting to blend casks together, he always mentions the word balance at some point in the conversation. So whether that is between spirit and wood or between different cask types that we're using in a product, balance is always just key, because there are, very different in the seasonal releases we've had. They're very different styles. So you could have, can't remember which side, something like the Fallow edition, which is 100% sherry, first fill sherry. So it's you can see even at 3.5 years old has a fair chunk of color on there. There we go.
Look at that stunning color.
Whereas something like our Sowing edition, which is the other side, is very, very clear, just straight first fill bourbon. So when we came to developing the first core product that we have, which is our barley. So I'm holding up a lot of bottles here, but this one that I'm actually drinking.
Okay. And our barley, that is your core product, yes.
Yes, yeah. So that one, we wanted, until we have the first stage statement, we wanted something that showcases the Lochlea style, but we can age up over time, and we can have as the kind of go-to for people. So we will still do the 4 seasonal limited editions, and those will change every year with the batch, different cask types, different ABVs. But at least there's one product that people can go and try. So with that one, I was loving Alasdair's chat about the different casks, the different wood types. That's right up my street. So I won't go into too much detail again, but 3 different cask types in our barley. So you've got first fill bourbon from makers, first fill Oloroso sherry, and then some STRs. And the STRs are European oak. So you do get that kind of slight white, almost white pepper spice in the back of the palate. But you've got all that Lochlea fruit. You've got the orange zest up front. You've got that kind of macadamia nut, so the kind of that nuttiness coming through from the Oloroso. So to me, that is, and it's John. It's the one that John took the most time over. Put it that way. It took a long. There were a lot of different recipes, and then as a team, we all sat down, tried the final 5 samples, and picked this one. So we're really happy with that. It's just I guess the age thing's interesting you mentioned, because for us and for we're all kind of youngish distillers on this call. The difference in 1 year, that's a quarter of our maturation. Proportionately that's a huge difference compared to a brand that's looking at how does their 13-year-old spirit, when it goes into 14, change. For us right now, every year is big, and it's hopefully showing that kind of constant improvement.
That's awesome. Okay. I wanted to bring on our special guest. Before we did, I see Chris may have a question here, and then there was one other question that came in for you, David, that I wanted to get to. Did you have a question, Mr. Uhde?
Well, it's for David Ferguson and David Thomson. When I was at, and it's Alasdair, maybe it's the same at yours, but because we didn't make it up there, next time I'll take advantage of it, because I didn't when I was at Lochlea or at Spirit of Yorkshire. But because they're both farmers, they have these bins that just have mountains of barley in them. And my question, I know Jared couldn't resist; he got in it a little bit. But my question for you guys is, honestly, do you ever just go dive through that like Scrooge McDuck through his coins? Because when you see that mountain, all I want to do is just go run and jump in it, like, and just swim around. It's the coolest looking thing ever. It's like, it's 15 feet high, so wide. Have you done it? That's my question.
We're still looking for some people that did it a couple of weeks back.
Oh, that's great. And David Thomson is not giving it up. Oh, here we go. Here's where the truth comes out. Yeah.
No, I've done it all my life. Yeah, I mean, even before I was into farming, I used to work in the trade, and I used to go sampling everybody else's grain just because I love it. So, yeah, the answer is definitely, and there's nothing quite like it.
David, I could see you guys leaving the brewery, and then just like walking.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. It's been done, Chris. It's been done.
Sounds glorious.
It does. I wanted to do the same. All I did was I grabbed a handful and threw it and made a video of barley going back onto barley. Anyway, so for David Ferguson, from Travis, do you feel like your expectations are a bit higher, seeing as John Campbell is attached to the distillery? And if so, how do you think you're living up to those expectations?
Well, that's another really good question. I would, yeah, I would say yes. I mean, I'm sorry, yes to the first part, because I think as soon as John joined us, he's obviously kind of well known within the industry because of the way he grew Lefroy over the past 27 years. But also, I think, and this was a big thing for Neil and I think when we first spoke to John, he just fits with our team. Like we're all very down to earth, no pun intended, on a farm distillery. We're all very kind of grounded people, I think, and we work hard. We like to have fun, and John just, it was, it's like he's been there for the whole time, really. So expectation wise, I think, yeah, probably people maybe thought, okay, there's something good is happening there if this guy's moving from a top 10 Scotch brand to join the project. In terms of us living up to it, I hope so. I don't want to sound, kind of arrogant as a brand. We're the first year's been good, but we've nothing to compare it against yet. So, it gets harder from here on in. But I definitely think John I imagine the kind of commercial side of the business, John makes my life easier, just in terms of the long-term planning, the improvements he's made in terms of spirit quality. I know the whiskey's in good hands and will be good, and it'll be delicious. And whatever we release, John having had the final say in the blending of it, I know it'll be good. So I basically have no excuses anymore.
Cool. I want to bring on our special guest. So again, we set this up as Christmas past, present, and future, and so we're going to save the future for, well, the future portion of this conversation, the later third of this conversation. But there's one gentleman who needs to come in a bit early. He's calling from much further away from the U.S. And this is a bit of a new thing, and a bit of a nice way to say hello to the U.S. now with the ImpEx Portfolio. And this is Mr. Harry Taylor from the Wolfburn Distillery. Hey, Harry.
Josh, how are you doing? Thank you for
I'm
having me
doing
on.
well. Yeah, pleasure to have you. I've been enjoying your whiskeys. Well, I've been following the story. Maybe since building plans. I don't know, since a while ago, and and then when Sam had let me in on the news not too long ago that Wolfburn was joining the portfolio, I was let's just say I was very happy. So it's really a delight to bring you on and
Thank
into
you.
the conversation. Now, Wolfburn's been in the U.S. for a couple of years now, not all over the U.S., but you've been here for a few years now, and we're looking to grow your brand and your bottlings throughout. I wonder, for those who may not be familiar with Wolfburn, if you can give us a peek behind the curtain, who you are and what you do and how you do it.
Yeah, delighted to. Thank you very much. And thank you also to Sam, because he was really the linchpin in inviting us into the ImpEx family. So it's a big step for us. Looking forward to marching on with you guys in 2023. So yeah, a quick, what is it the Americans say, elevator pitch? So sort of background of Wolfburn, the brand. It's just fascinating for me listening to David and Alasdair and these just parallel journeys. So we've been around a little bit longer than the other distilleries, but clearly following a very similar path. And it's just like a trip down memory lane, listening, the first year, the year of distillation and the first year of releases and that stuff. It's just lovely. So yeah, guys, carry on with what you're doing. We're just a few months shy, well, 1 month actually, of being 10 years old. So the distillery was built in 2012, and we went on spirit on the 25th of January 2013. So yeah, next month we'll see our 10th anniversary. Our oldest casks will become a decade old, which is exciting times. Wolfburn, for those who don't know, we're the most northerly distillery on the Scottish mainland. So we don't have a view that can compete with Alasdair's, but we're not on an island, but we can see the Orkneys from the window. We've got a lovely team. There's 11 now, boys and girls up there in the far north, and then we have some commercial members of the team who are scattered around, not in Thurso. So yeah, that's us. We operate under the guidance, if you like, of a master distiller called Ian Kerr. I don't know how many years he's been in the industry, too many, but probably I'm guessing about 25 now. He was with Glenlivet for many years before he came and joined us back in 2013. So he's essentially been with us for the last decade, and he's the sort of heart and soul of the business, or the production side of the business. And he's passionate about what he does, and he's a perfectionist. So he's just a wonderful asset and a very good team manager. So yeah, our initial launch is our first whiskey that went on sale was back in 2016. So most of what we sell now is 6-7 years old, that kind of age. But unsurprisingly, given that I've just told you about our anniversary coming up, the big news in looking forward into the future, as you were talking about, is our 10-year-old release. So that will be our first age statement whiskey, and that will be available essentially from the distillery. So from April next year. So add a couple of months to that for some transit time, and with a bit of luck and a following wind, it'll be in the United States by early summer.
And will that be a standard product going on? Or do you envision that as a special release for a while?
No. It'll be what we call a permanent release. So once we launch the 10-year-old, it will always be available. And our plan is that in 2025 it will be followed with a 12-year-old, perhaps unsurprisingly. And then those two, the 10 and the 12, will remain part of our portfolio on a permanent basis. But they won't replace the non-age statement whiskies that we currently have. So we have a core range of 4 right now, and those 4 do very well for us. And I'll knock on wood as I say that, but they're selling beautifully around the world, and the sales are on a fairly steep upward trajectory, and they've won a lot of international awards and medals. So the non-age statement whiskies will most certainly remain. We won't replace them. They'll be augmented by the age statements, by the 10 and then eventually the 12-year-old.
Okay. When I think about Scotch whiskey distilleries, traditionally people have relegated distilleries to their various regions, and then we come to find out, well, regionality doesn't necessarily exist in the manner that we thought it did, or that it was marketed to us. However, I think when I think of Isle of Raasay, I think of a West Coast style of whiskey. There's something about it. There's connective tissue for those West Coast distilleries. But then I flip the coin and I think of Lochlea, and I don't think of lowland whiskeys, despite them being a lowland distillery. What would you say is Wolfburn's DNA or characteristic that sets you apart, and would you attribute it to your location?
That's a great question. So we, let me fudge my answer, because we're a bit of a hybrid. So we're in the Highland region, North Highland to be specific. But there's a little bit of Speyside influence in our malt, because that's where our master distillers learnt their trade.
Okay.
So the Wolfburn spirit is a very soft, smooth, easy drinking spirit. It makes it quite an accessible single malt. It's not a hugely challenging flavor profile. It's one that I think appeals to quite a wide range of palates. And that's possibly down to predominantly Ian's influence. But when we looked back historically, we realised that I don't know if you've ever visited the far north of Scotland, and it's I'll be a little bit unkind here. It's quite a bleak place, particularly at this time of year. So when he talks about daylight hours with Alasdair earlier, in summer we very nearly do 24 hours of daylight. It never gets 100% dark. It goes down to a sort of deep inky dusk, and then by 1 o'clock in the morning the sun's above the horizon again. But conversely, in winter it's dark really a lot of the time, and the wind speeds are ferocious. As a result of that, there are very, very few trees. So when we looked back at the old Wolfburn distillery, which was built back in 1821, the original distillery, it is very clear very quickly that it was fired by peat, because that's the only fossil fuel available in the far north, and there are huge peat bogs very, very close to the distillery. So we do about roughly a quarter of our year's production is lightly peated barley, malt. So it's only 10 ppm in terms of the phenol load. So it's not hectic, but it gives some real depth and some body to the juice. And what we found is that has got us quite a lot of sort of cred and following as being of the traditional Highland mechanism or method of making whiskey. So we don't do that all year round. Most of the time we're unpeated, but it's been nice to follow that historical journey by doing a peated production. So to go back to the start point, we have this sort of hybrid of this soft, smooth kind of Speyside influence, really from the likes of Ian in the production team, but also married with the traditional North Highland processes.
That's beautiful. Cool. That's a good way to give us a little bit of context. Thank you for that.
Not at all.
I got a fun fact
thing, Josh,
for you guys.
Ooh.
Oh, go on.
Go ahead.
I'm
Go ahead,
listening.
Harry. So you might not. I don't know if you know this or not, but we're all of us at ImpEx. We have a really good friend, Whiskey and Donuts, and Mr. and Donuts has a personalized license plate on the back of his car, and that license plate says Thurso. So now it all comes full circle. I don't have to deflate his tires when he's at my warehouse anymore.
Yeah, he I believe was in touch with Mark very recently. So Mark, you guys will get to know because he's our brand ambassador. He's a ton of fun. But I think the Whiskey Donuts connection was made quite recently, so that was there. I was going to, on a different note, I was going to add, and I have to do this credit where it's 100% due. Back in our before we even started, so back in 2011, Andrew, who's my co-founder of the distillery, and I spent a very happy week on Islay with Anthony Wills at Kilhoman Distillery. And Kilchoman is so I'm ducking and diving in the Highland question, but Kilchoman's almost part of our DNA. And Anthony was the pioneer, really, of the independent distilleries. Back in the 2000s, no one was building distilleries, and now there's quite a lot of us have come along in the intervening period. So to hear Sam and you guys talk about 12 years, 13 years of Kilchoman being part of the ImpEx family. Well, we're late to the party in that respect, but hopefully following where other great brands have already led.
Better late than never. It's really, really excited to have you in the portfolio here. So I wanted to bring on Mr. David Thomson of Spirit of Yorkshire, and this is now, David, I have to tell you, I'm doing small pours. My bosses are on this thing, so I have to do the little caveats here. I'm doing small pours, but this is my second pour of your whiskey because I'm really in love with your spirit, and I want to tell you really quickly before you tell people about Spirit of Yorkshire and what you're doing. I was doing an event last Friday in Massachusetts, a great shop, Norfolk Wine and Spirits. Bikram Singh is the owner, and he this year fell in love with Filey Bay. I remember last year his big love was Penderyn, and he still loves Penderyn. But he got to taste Filey Bay, and I wouldn't say he forces your whiskey on people. That's not how we do things around here. But he really tries to put it in front of everybody he sees, and he comes off, he says, it's younger whiskey. That doesn't matter. What matters is how complete it is, how pretty the spirit is. And so we got to talking about how you produce your whiskeys, your two different distillation styles, and so on. And so, in this, Bikram's not the easiest person to satisfy or to impress. And so you've really done some hard work without even knowing it. But if you could tell us a bit about how you do what you do. I mean, looking at the screen here, what you're doing is a bit different from everybody else. And so I wonder if you could share that a bit.
Yeah, sure. I mean, first of all, guys, it's great to be alongside these other guys. I mean, one of the things that's really exciting at the moment is going around the world and actually bumping into David and Alasdair. And I haven't met Harry yet, but, we've got a lot in common. We're fairly youngish. In fact, I think I was just about to say we were the oldest until Harry got involved. So, which I've never sat on a panel before where we've actually been an English whiskey, which has been the oldest whiskey. But yeah, it's exciting times. The market's exciting, but our distillers are doing some great things. And one of my delights is going around and tasting everybody else's whiskey. So thanks for that, guys. Spirit of Yorkshire. First of all, we're not Scottish. Shock horror. Yeah. We're English. But I actually prefer to call ourselves Yorkshire because we are. So Yorkshire is a beautiful place. I mean, you guys came to visit us in the summer. We've got beautiful rolling hills. We produce a lot of malting barley. We've got 3 or 4 very large malting companies around us because the fact we grow some cracking malting barley. And Spirit of Yorkshire was really born out of that. It was born out of an active farm, 4 generations being run by the same family, growing predominantly malting barley, wheat and oilseed rape. And in 2003, we started brewing beer because we had the barley and we had the water from the farm. So for us, that was adding value to the raw materials that were actually under our feet. So that was the first sort of process, really. And then in 2016, we decided we can make beer. So actually, we can make whiskey as well. So we use obviously 100% of our own grown barley, just like Lochlea. And we're very proud of that fact, tracing it all the way back to actually each field. And I suppose we are farmers at heart, so, but at the same time, we wanted to learn the craft of distilling ourselves. So we didn't actually employ a distiller. We employed Dr. Jim Swan to teach us how to distill. So Tom, my business partner, myself, we spent the first year and a half with no other employees learning how to distill our own wash. So it's pretty unique. And that stood us in good stead, really, because in lockdown, in the COVID sort of era, I was actually back on the stills, distilling again, and I did a whole 9 months without a break. So those sort of skill sets, if you like, just don't. It's not about what you're producing; it's about imparting yourself into that spirit, which we're very proud of. So yeah, in a very quick nutshell, that's the spirit of Yorkshire. We're now coming up to sort of 7 years old, so we've got some lovely whiskies maturing in all sorts of different cask types. And I guess, the flagship is the one that is our DNA. It's our light, fruity, really easy drinking, full-term bourbon maturation, all the way through to the things you've got in front of you, Joshua, which is the Yorkshire Day, which is actually a Fino casks this year. So lots going on, and lots of very, very tasty liquid as well.
Was there, but before we bring on our final guest here, and we'll have some more questions for you all coming in from the chat, and then I know Sam and Chris may have some questions as well. But before we bring on our final guest for the evening, I love what you said, David, where you said you brought on Dr. Jim Swan and you had to learn how to distill your wash. What was the most surprising thing during the process of learning to distill your wash? What was the thing that surprised you the most during that process, if you recall?
Gosh, I think it's not just one process. Distilling itself is, and shock horror, it's relatively straightforward. I think for us, it's the maturation and the wood management, and that was the learning curve which we had to go through. I mean, once you've cracked the wash production and you've got all the esters into that wash, distilling is relatively straightforward as long as you sort of follow the Jim Swan rules, which we do avid, and we've never changed away from that, because we see the spirit as a template. We see it as if you like the canvas, and then the maturation side of it is painting the colours on the canvas. So we try and always produce the same sort of distillate. And you alluded to the fact we've got two styles, and we have because we're not in Scotland, we've got a small 4-plate rectifying column as well next to the spirit still. So there's still 4-size stills. They're from Scotland. There's a lot of heritage there, but we are sort of flexing that a little bit, and we can do that in England. And so we have a very light, fruity distillate that comes from the 4-plate rectifying after it's been through the spirit still, and then more traditionally oily-based sort of new make as well. And we cask those separately, and then when we bring those back together, it's basically giving us more options in the warehouse, and each bottling, if you like, has a different proportion of both new make spirits.
Okay. Final question for you. If we're getting back to the idea of regionality, whether it matters or not, regionality is not something that's been discussed or really brought up when it comes to English whiskey or Yorkshire whiskey. But you're proudly Yorkshire, right? And so my question to you is, what would you say flavor-wise represents Yorkshire for you? What is your whiskey doing to say, hey, this is where we're from?
Yeah, I think everybody strives to be different, and I think that's sometimes not a good thing. I think the bottom line with all of these guys on here today is we're making some great liquid. It tastes fantastic, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be consistent. I think that's the thing. We don't want to have different styles flying in and out. We want to be consistent. So when somebody picks up a bottle of Filey Bay, they know what to expect. Yes, the cask finish will be different and the cask styles are different, but fundamentally you will know that is a Spirit of Yorkshire and Filey Bay liquid. And I think that's the skill of what we're doing. We're trying to produce something that is recognisable in hands throughout the world, and I guess that sums up what we're trying to do, really.
There you go. That's beauty. Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate that. All right, I'm going to bring on our final guest. So we gave everybody a. There we go. I lost my screen for a second there. We gave everybody a sneak peek of Christmas future with. That's so funny. I'm the one Jew on this call, and I'm talking about Christmas the whole time. Here we go. One Jew. What am I saying? Sorry, Sam. 2 Jews. 2 Jews in a room, 3 opinions. There you go. Sorry,
You know,
Sam.
you got me converted, but it's okay. Oh.
Anyway, here we are talking about Christmas past, present, and future, and another distillery in our future. And this is Mr. Matt Johns from. Now, I'm going to need your help here, Matt, because I was having a conversation with a friend of yours, Mark Izzard from Waiheke, and I pronounced it one way, and I got a sideways glance. I had him on a podcast that I do, and anyway, so I'm going to let you pronounce your distillery name and give people an idea of where you're from and what you guys do and how you do it.
Cool. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on, and delighted to be joining such a fantastic lineup of single malts. So absolutely brilliant. Josh, do you want to give it a go before I give it a go? Go on, give it a try.
So I want to say Pochino, but I don't know if I have the right emphasis on the right syllable.
Yeah,
so maybe it's
probably
Pochino.
the other way around. Pochino.
Pocono. Oh, like the
Pocono.
Poconos
Yeah,
here in
like
here in the
Poconos.
U.S. Or yeah,
That's
there
it.
you go, Pocono. Pocono. All right, thank you. So there you go, Pocono whiskey.
So cool. So to give you guys a brief rundown kind of thing. So we've been around since 2017. We started building the plant end of 17, commissioned at the end of 2018. And the first spirit really ran off the stills into the barrel at the start of 2019. So I don't know how many people have been to New Zealand before, but there's two distinct islands, the North Island and the South Island. The South Island, which is very much like the Alps, quite cold, quite temperate, the mountains, etc. Like Scotland in very many ways. And the North Island, which is subtropical, 97% humidity, crazy weather all year round, etc. and the rest of it. So we're based about 30 minutes south of Auckland in the subtropical North Island. And we built the distillery as a real passion project in 2018. And it was all about making, like everybody here, the best single malt possible with no compromise in anything we can do. So yeah, a couple of things that we probably have got kind of a little bit different from everybody else is that with the subtropical climate, our maturation levels are off the chart. Our Angel share is currently sitting at just over 8% a year, which was quite scary when we first discovered that.
Okay.
Put the business plan back into perspective. That was an interesting one. And the other thing as well is that we're distilling really, really slowly. So slowly that our spirit's kind of running off the stills an ABV of kind of around 77% down to about 72.
Oh, wow. Okay.
A massive amount of reflux in the stills.
Yeah.
Just trying to make the sweetest possible whiskey that we can, kind of thing, which I'm guessing you can get from the nose on the glass that you've just tried.
Well, I had to finish my last bit of Filey Bay.
There we go.
To then make room for your whiskey. So you keep talking, and I'll enjoy as you mention the notes.
So we launched this year, so very, very recent. We're the kind of probably the last one in the story with all the guys who've spoken before. So we launched in August this year. So it's been a hell of a year. So yeah, delighted with the reception. We've kind of gone into 6 or 7 international markets for a start. A very gradual, staggered kind of launch to make sure that we're keeping up with demand from the markets and focusing on a limited number of markets at once, kind of thing. And yeah, it's exciting. It's very exciting for the future. It was interesting to listen to the guys talking about age statements and things like that, because I think what we have realized over the last couple of years is we're probably never going to get an age statement out of Pocono. It's probably never going to happen, not with 8 or 9% evaporation a year. But yeah, it kind of puts a lot of things in perspective, I think, with a lot of kind of new world whiskies. From countries like Taiwan, countries like India, etc., and the rest of it, where actually age statement doesn't even come into the kind of equation.
Sure.
It's more about flavor, which is the same with a lot of the guys have said tonight. It's all about the process they're following to put the flavor first rather than the age statement.
Now, being in New Zealand and being really far away from where most malt whiskey distilleries are getting their casks from, do you find yourselves leaning a bit more on the New Zealand and Australian and Tas wine industry or other spirits industry, or are you trying to follow the path of ex-bourbon, ex-sherry? Like, what's your aim with the spirit and its maturation?
So what we've done so far is we're trying. Can't remember who it said something about making sure that the profile is consistent through the whole thing. So our signature malt, which is Pork Origin, is 100% aged in first fill bourbon casks, coming over from the US. I mean, New Zealand, you're completely right. Getting anything is a challenge. There's very few things that are actually made in New Zealand. When you talk bottles, you talk capsules, you talk corks, you talk casks, there's very little made. So getting anything to the other end of the world is quite a challenge. But yeah, so we age probably about 70% of our spirit in first fill bourbon casks. We'll also then age as well into sherry casks, whether it's Oloroso, PX, Moscatel, Amontillado. We've done stuff in virgin casks, STR casks, which David mentioned earlier on as well. The exciting thing that we've got coming as well is that New Zealand's one of the only countries in the world with no actual legislation today around the kind of definition of what single malt whiskey is. We're kind of just working on that legislation at the moment, but the legislation is actually going to allow us to use casks other than oak as well, which is opening up some exciting opportunities around native wood in New Zealand. That was the latest thing that we brought on board, is that we've just brought we built a cooperage as well and brought a cooper in from Scotland. So we're actually able to make our own casks at the same time. So a few exciting things kind of come up in the future as well.
Oh man, I'm imagining red gum casks potentially. Red gum. Yeah. Right. Chris, you had a question?
I have two questions. One's for Matt and then one's for Alasdair as well, if I can.
Please.
Matt, for you first, since you have such a high evaporation rate, do you see, I know that I think it's in Armenian brandy they do this, where they kind of have like some casks that are severely overaged, and they'll take like a portion of that and mix it in with younger stuff to kind of thicken it up, if you will, or kind of like add a heavier, long-standing oak thing in it. Do you guys have any plans to do that in your future, where you just have some casks that are allocated to just let them go beyond anything usable by themselves, but to bring into a larger, bring as a small percentage to a larger vat?
I think there's a couple of things there. One, we've got no intention of kind of using older spirit with younger spirit. We are kind of, a lot of people have asked me, why don't we look at kind of temperature controlling warehouses and things like that, things to actually contain some of these evaporation loss. My kind of reply to that is that if I do that, then I'm no longer making New Zealand whiskey. Then I'm making another whiskey in New Zealand. So there's the kind of there was no question of not just letting the climate do what it needs to do. I mean, we will let a certain percentage of our stock age. I think we're going to get to a point though, that the actual wood will start taking over too much. With the evaporation rates we've got, are we going to get to 6 or 7 years old and all of a sudden, we go, actually, we can't age this spirit any further. We're kind of distilling quite a delicate spirit as it is, so we don't want too much wood influence in there. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be very much crystal ball. I think David was saying earlier on, a year at our kind of age of distilleries is enormous, especially when you're looking at kind of 8% evaporation a year kind of thing. So even 6 months for us, the thing changes completely. But we are getting this real kind of level of maturity really, really young, which I suppose compensates for the fact we're never going to get an age statement. There's got to be some compensation there somewhere.
Thank you for that. And then if I can switch it to Alasdair real quick, because it kind of has the same thing to do with wood. Alasdair, when you were talking earlier, and I got a little distracted there because it looks like we got some bum comments. Hopefully you deleted those, Josh.
Yeah, I just deleted and blocked them. So
evidently Matt's evoking a lot of emotions out of a couple of people. They're ready to take you out on dates.
As soon as he starts talking, people are suggesting XXX websites. I don't know what you do, Matt, but
it's got to be part of the accent. It's always the accent. You bring these guys to the United States, and it's just. Anyways,
the thing is, it's an English accent.
Yeah, no, I know. I play football with soccer with a bunch of these guys, and they are just relentless. It's just amazing to hear them. Anyways, Alasdair, with you at the beginning, you were kind of talking about the different oaks you use and everything. And my question for you is it's just, so Joshua will tell you, as you guys all see him, it takes me a while to catch up on some things, and I come from the sideways instead of forwards. And it was marinating in my brain. And my question for you is a chicken or egg question. Did you have an infatuation with oak before you did the distillery, or was it a necessary
Ooh.
education that you took on after you did the distillery because of what you wanted to do with the distillery? And I have a follow-up to that as well. He's muted.
Oh,
If
yeah, you're still muted, Alasdair.
I don't know if he can hear me either.
Oh, that's a good point. Oh, well, you know what? He's at the Ardshiel in Campbelltown Wi-Fi, everybody.
You see the difference here, though? Like, Matt's accent brings on people trying to get dates going. My accent makes people leave the screen. And there we go.
Well, while we're waiting for him to come back on, so, Sam, it looks like you may have a question.
Well, I have tons of questions and I forgot all of them. But first of all, Joshua, I beat you on this one, so I got a little bit better.
Oh,
Part of
man,
the juice
you're
left.
so much better at drinking than I am, Sam. I don't know what it is.
It's addiction. It's the addiction, Josh.
I was
Number one,
helping him
number two. There we go. And David is right in the middle. And somebody asked, what kind of cask do you enjoy there, David?
Oh yeah, whiskey, and I see Alasdair popped on, so we'll get to him
Tonight?
in just yeah. We saw you reach for a bottle.
One you
So-
guys don't actually have yet, which is
Oh,
a
hold
port
on.
finish.
We're gonna spotlight you.
Yeah,
There we
that's
go.
See,
our
now-
port
now-
finish.
Now we
Yeah,
have a
so-
full disclosure because they were trying to hide it from us. But, we had. Anyways, Joshua and Chris, I'm happy for you that you are now on the waiting list to dive into barley fields. Chris, you're number one. Joshua, number two. Looking at the screen and seeing all five of our guests, from David Thomson, from Spirits of Yorkshire, Filey Bay, softer, character with very nice notes there, going to David Ferguson from Lochlea, which is a lowland whiskey, but doesn't taste like lowland. Going to Alasdair with Isle of Raasay, that this island character, yet using some different kind of woods and et cetera, that makes it so unique. Going to Matt with his New Zealand character whiskey, and of course Harry with Highland whiskey that you kind of expect this robust feel, and it's not there. You're looking for it, it's not there. It's so enjoyable, it's so sweet, it's so soft. It just makes me proud that we have this bouquet of different things and different people behind this wonderful distilleries, and that's my comment. Thank you for trusting us, and thank you for being part of our family.
Beautifully said, Sam.
Can I just say, guys, when we were invited out there, I think we were out there with David Ferguson and Adam Erkin as well, and we had the most wonderful time working with your teams down the coast. It was incredible to see how educated the market is over there. There's fantastic people who love all sorts of malts, all sorts of spirits, to be honest, but the reception was fantastic. And when you're sort of venturing in these new markets, you're not quite sure how it's going to be received. But I have to say, you guys know what you're doing, and the audience you've got knows what they're doing as well. So thanks for that, guys. It's been brilliant.
Thanks,
Thank you, David. Now Alasdair's back. So, Alasdair, did you hear my question before your internet went out?
No, unfortunately, just as you asked the question, the Wi-Fi dropped here. So.
It was no good of a question, anyways. Don't worry
No,
about it.
go on.
My question was,
Answer
my question was, were you, like, you were speaking pretty intensely about the different type of oak you used earlier. My question was, did you have did you study oak before you did the distillery, or was your education in what oak does to spirit a necessary thing that happened post doing the distillery, and which came first, chicken or egg on that front?
So a number of things. I should declare that I did a degree in botany at Glasgow University. So I'm really fascinated by oak species, how the oak species can influence the spirit, but also barley varieties and how barley varieties change the species. So that's the kind of, if you like, my underground background as to what I study and what my interests are. we also work closely with Henrik Molin at Spirit of Ven in Sweden. And Henrik, I was talking to Henrik about different casks and charring levels and toasting and oak species and how it would all work. And Henrik he's a really interesting, I don't know if you know Spirit of Ven, but he can produce lots of different spirits. So he had actually matured his vodka, so essentially grain neutral spirit in different casks with different charrings and all the rest of it. So I went over to Sweden. I made the fatal mistake of driving, so I had to nose everything. I couldn't actually taste any of it. But we had a day of different oak species, of different charring levels, of different toasting levels, and nosing all of this grain neutral spirit in these different casks, and that just helped me clarify the thoughts as to the oak species, the charring levels, the toasting levels is going to work with our spirit on Raasay, because, you know, ultimately it has to be something that works with the new make spirit that you make. So we make a number of different new make spirits on Raasay, and we have to make sure that the wood complements the spirit, and others have said that tonight. So it's both way around. So the kind of theory of my degree, being a botanist, but also the practice of actually putting spirit in different casks and seeing what it imparts.
Do you have a vessel or an oak type or any type of organic vessel that you, given there's no cost, like you're not calculating cost or what it would take to do it, is there something you would love to experiment with just for shits and giggles?
We've done some interesting stuff. If you come to Raasay, I'll open some different oak species casks that you can maybe try. Josh, you maybe tried them when you were up, but we've got some interesting based on that whole how does oak species influence spirit. We've got some different things we can show you.
You had some manzanilla casks.
We have manzanilla.
So
American oak. So American oak with manzanilla passata. So manzanilla passata is a 7-year-old manzanilla, and the rationale behind manzanilla is we get asked a lot about having maturation on an island, off an island on the west coast of Scotland.
Ah, there you go. Yeah.
Will we get maritime influences? Well, we may well do in time, but if you use manzanilla casks, you definitely have salty manatee.
Without a doubt. Look at that. Yeah, those were remarkable. Yeah, Chris, sorry.
So no, it's okay. Just real quick, because Travis put that question in the thing. I kind of want to call him out on the video.
Oh, here,
Travis,
I'll
if you can get your sorry butt to LA February 8th through the 10th, Matt's actually going to be in town from Pocono, and we're going to have some tastings lined up for him. So drive the 6 hours from where you are to where I am, and come hang out, man.
Speaking of Matt, there was a question that came in from Brian Dvorak, and so he's curious about your process. Are you holding to 3 years in a day in New Zealand as far as that being matured whiskey, and then the follow up to that, he wants to know a bit about your distillation style. Is it pot still? Is it a combination of pot and column?
Cool. Okay, I'll try and do it as quickly and simply as I can. So easy answer is yes, we're sticking to the model of a minimum of 3 years before we release any whiskey. So the whiskies that will be coming to the US will be about 3.5 years old. As far as the distillation is concerned, so we've got double pot still. So we've got a wash still of 3,800 litres and a spirit still of 3,600 litres. So we've oversized the spirit still, and we do 2 wash distillations for a spirit distillation.
You weren't kidding. You really, boom, right to the point.
There we go. Easy answer.
Oh, I love it. And then there was, we got Johnny's question there. There was something that came in. Hold on, and this was specifically for you, Harry, which everybody can see. Harry Taylor has joined the Witness Protection Program, which is nice.
I'm in hiding in a power cut. but my laptop has battery, so we're okay.
Yeah, there we go. So this came in from Callum Renton. He's talking about your small batch bottlings and some single casks. Can you just explain for those who are looking forward to 2023 what your line is going to look like for the US?
If you'll indulge me first, Callum. Thank you for the question. I'm having a small wake. This is the end of my own bottle of 155 that I've been dramming this evening. So we've obviously got a similar palate because it's my favourite of all our small batches that we've done over time. But we will absolutely carry on doing. It's an annual thing, the small batch. So typically made in the summer in Bonnie, Scotland, and then exported. So that would mean each year it would kind of hit the shores of the United States, probably autumn time in the run up to Christmas. I've no idea what the next one will be. We have a rummage around so to put numbers on it, we typically make between 5,000 and 6,000 bottles of each small batch, and it's exactly what it says it is. So once it's made, and once it's gone, it's gone. So it's a question of rummaging in the warehouse and finding casks of sometimes homogenous types and sometimes different ones that will come together to make the small batch. So whatever the next one will be, I don't know. Ian will figure that out. But it will continue to be an annual event. The 155 was brilliant. I don't know if you've tried some of the later ones. The 204 was the one that was finished for 6 months in Madeira casks. That was very, very good. Lately, we've done ones which was lightly peated spirit, matured in PX casks. That was hugely well. Batch 318, that was cool. That was enormously well received. So we've got lots of options. So we'll carry on doing those because they're fun and people like them.
Yeah, beauty. There was a video, Harry, that you had sent over of Mark Westmoreland, who's your global brand ambassador, and I was really touched by this video, and I think that I think the commentary in it may match what you guys do. There's something really special about it. Do you mind if I share that video with everybody?
I'd be delighted, and I know Mark would as well. I'm sorry he can't be on the call today because he's actually in midair as we speak, but he'd be chuffed to bits if you were to show the video, Josh.
Okay. Hopefully he's on a plane in midair.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe so. Fingers crossed.
All right, let's see if this works out. This is new technology for me that I'm trying out. So let's give it a go.
USA and everybody at ImpEx Beverages. My name's Mark Westmoreland. I'm the global brand ambassador for Wolfburn Whisky, and we're super stoked to work with you guys next year. Looking forward to coming out stateside and conquering that side of the market, and you'll have my support to do so as well. I'm in snowy Switzerland at the moment, my last hurrah of the year, and it's an absolute pleasure. Met Sam and Chris in Glasgow a few months ago, and looking forward to working with Joshua as well. Hopefully you'll hear from Harry what our strategic vision is. You get me the same way at Wolfburn. Honest as the day is long, passionate about our spirit, born and bred in Thurso. You'll hopefully feel the electricity and passion that burns within me. A local lad on a global stage, getting the liquid to the lips. That is Wolfburn. See you soon.
That's beauty. What a gentleman. What a nice video to receive.
Yeah, Mark's just a lovely human being. He's as he says in the video, Thurso born and bred. So when we put the distillery together a decade ago, he reached out to us, and he was actually serving in the police force at the time, and said, is there any chance I can do some sort of tastings and bits and pieces? And he just became a fan of the whiskey. And then when he retired from the police force, we hesitated for about half a second before signing him up full time. Like, come and join the team, and he's been front and center ever since. He's just a legend. Lovely bloke.
That's awesome. Well, gentlemen, we've just about hit our time here, at our hour and a half mark. But I wanted to give you some time if you had any closing comments that you wanted to mention about your distillery, about anything else. I more than welcome it. So I'll let you unmute yourself and talk if you have something you want to you want to chime in on, and if not, then I'll let you go to sleep. I realize it's quite late where you are.
Joshua, thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure to be on tonight, and I'd just like to extend a welcome to anyone who wants to come to Raasay, experience the view that we've spoke about and our spirit, and really, really looking forward to working with you.
Cheers.
Yeah, I mean, from our side, thanks again, guys, for having us. I love doing these things. Great to talk about Lochlea. We don't have a visitor centre or shop, so I can't extend the same invite that Alasdair did. But if you know Joshua, Sam, or Chris, that's about the only way of getting in here. So ask one of them, and we'll make it happen.
Beauty. Thank you, David.
I've got a lasting memory of this this last year, actually, and that was going stateside with you guys, but actually seeing John Campbell in a tiki bar with a sparkler and a drink was amazing, and that's the highlight of my year.
Oh, that's
market visits. We work very hard.
That would be a great screensaver. Well, that's great. Thank you all so much. Harry, I realize it's forever o'clock where you are right now.
Yeah, I'm heading towards coffee o'clock. Never mind whiskey o'clock.
All right.
Coming right around. Yeah. We're competing for the middle ground here. I can see it's daylight where Matt is. So I think he's a few hours ahead of me. But
I'm just halfway through the day.
Good on you,
Matt. I've got an important question for you. How far from Hobbiton is your distillery?
Once you've got to New Zealand, it's very close.
Okay.
But once you got to New Zealand, anything's very close. We're probably about 2 hours drive away, so pretty close. When you come over, we can vehicle you down there, no problem at all.
I'm not gonna lie to you. It's in my top 2 places in the world to visit. So as a Lord of the Rings dork. So there you go.
We were just in Ayrshire. Why do we need to go to the other shire?
I've just got one final comment, guys, which is really quite interesting. I presume, Harry, you're English as well by your accent, and we've got Matt that's English. I'm English. We're actually outnumbering the Scots here, guys.
Yeah.
Oh, well said. Yeah.
Which must be the first time in a whiskey sort of show that we've actually outnumbered the Scots. So.
I see every ImpEx employee as an adopted Scot, so actually there's 3 on the top line there.
Yeah, but Josh is obviously an adopted Kiwi.
Yeah. When it's 60 million to 5 million, it's just a normal fact of the day, David. So
yeah, I did notice as well. I was very impressed when Harry's brand ambassador used the word stoked as well. So he's obviously got some Kiwi in him as well.
All right, gentlemen. We got a nice little closing comment here from Travis. Who's a huge supporter of ImpEx and everything we're doing here. So Travis, thank you for always joining us, and a thank you too from Brian. The comments here have been blowing up with all sorts of thank yous. So from us, from me, from Sam, it looks like you had a closing comment before we headed out.
Yeah, I also wanted to thank everyone who joined us today and who didn't join us and who is a huge supporter of our brands and trusts us and supports us by buying bottles. Continue doing that, please. And wanted to wish everyone great, happiest holidays. Be safe. And thank you again for everything you do for us.
Beauty. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Good
Sleep well.
Have a good evening, guys.
Appreciate everything.
Cheers,
and
guys. Thanks
Happy
so
New
much.
Year.
Merry
Cheers.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Bye.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.